we'll finish up with talking quickly about the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. The synopsis is that Scott Lang, a.k.a. Ant-Man, and Hope Van Dyne, a.k.a. the Wasp, along with Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, and Janet Van Dyne, the OG Wasp, explore the quantum realm where they interact with strange creatures and embark on an adventure that goes beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. Rated PG-13. It's directed by Peyton Reed, who has directed an episode of The Mandalorian. He directed a few episodes of New Girl, Jim Carrey in Yes Man, Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn in The Breakup, Bring It On, which I wrote an actual paper on in college at the Johns Hopkins University. That exists. I think I had a B+. He directed a few episodes of The Upright Citizens Brigade with Amy Poehler. He directed episodes of Mr. Show with Bob and David, dude. One of my favorite sketch comedy shows of all time. And then get a load of this. This was unintentional. These 3 movies, I mean, there's some strategy behind it, but I didn't realize that it had these common threads. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, director Peyton Reed, directed episodes of the Weird Al Show. Oh my God. We just reviewed Weird, the Al Yankovic story. So, I don't know that I was like a huge fan of Peyton Reed before finding all this out, but it's like, I'm kind of digging his resume, dude. That's a pretty fucking solid resume. I would die for the resume. It's produced by Kevin Feige, Stephen Broussard. Written by Jeff Loveness, great last name, and Jack Kirby. Loveness, his credits include writing for Jimmy Kimmel Live and The Onion, Miracle Workers, which is apparently a critically acclaimed comedy starring Daniel Radcliffe. What? And Steve Buscemi. And it's TBS, I think it's on. But that's a show that I think maybe I should watch. But then again, it's like I tried watching the OG with Tracy Morgan, which was also on TBS, that was also critically acclaimed. And it's like one of those sitcoms. It's like I think I can binge it in a day type of thing when nothing else is on, maybe. And then he wrote some episodes of Rick and Morty, which is going through some upheaval due to the accusations against Justin Roiland, his co-creator. Anywho, saw this in theaters this weekend. It was released on February 17th. I saw it President's Day, Monday, the 20th. Cast includes Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man. After the events of Avengers Endgame, Lang has become a well-known celebrity. He's the author of an autobiographical book called Look Out for the Little Guy, which tells a different version of how he helped save the universe from Thanos in Endgame. Evangeline Lilly, definitely not how you say it. Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne, aka Wasp, with sporting a new do. Got the pixie cut. Kind of funny because it's like, and I don't know if that's intentional, but the connection that my brain makes is like, oh, like, you know, from Peter Pan. Like she's the fairy from Peter Pan because she has the pixie cut with the wings. Like I can't not, like you are a pixie. Anyway, she's the daughter of Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. And she serves as the head of the new Pym Van Dyne Foundation, which uses Pym particles for humanitarian efforts. That was like, okay. I don't know about what I'm reading something. I'm just like, I disagree with it. I guess I should say it, huh, Neal? Lilly said the film would explore how the character deals with her, quote, fragilities and her vulnerabilities, end quote, continuing from how Ant-Man and the Wasp showed how powerful and capable she was, her fragilities and her vulnerabilities. I feel like this movie didn't focus on that, really. It focused on Paul Rudd, Scott Lang's relationship with his daughter. Oh my God. Just like The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent also focused on a father's relationship with his daughter. Oh my God. Yeah, the focus wasn't really on Hope Van Dyne, the Wasp. It was on Janet Van Dyne, the original Wasp, who had been stuck down in the quantum realm for 30 years. And somehow didn't bring any of that up to her husband or daughter or family. I think it's, but then again, I haven't been stuck in a quantum realm for 3 decades, so I can't really speak to that. Can't criticize. Jonathan Majors is Kang the Conqueror. I've never seen, I probably should have cut down on this, but holy macaroni, dude. That I've never seen like in Wikipedia, when you go to the Wikipedia page for a movie and you see like the cast section is usually like a bulleted list. And it's like, here's the actor, here's the character they play, and here's like a 1-line description. This for Kang the Conqueror, Jonathan Majors' Kang the Conqueror, has just a humongous block of text that's got to be like 17 paragraphs. Time-traveling multiversal adversary trapped in the quantum realm who needs PIM particles to get his ship and device online to allow him to get out of the quantum realm and fuck shit up everywhere else. He's an alternate timeline variant. So there's like, spoiler alert, there's like a bunch of Kangs, dude. A lot of Kangs. Which I feel like we saw in What If. If you watched What If, he was in some of the later episodes, I believe. But one of the versions of Kang was the creator of the Time Variance Authority, which was introduced in Loki. First season of Loki. Kang was described by Loki season 1 head writer Michael Waldron as the next big cross movie villain for the MCU. Yeah. So this is the intro, I guess, at the film level for Kang, and he's basically going to be like, I think Avengers, one of the Avengers that comes out in 2025 is going to be called Kang Dynasty or something like that. So, and they nailed it. I mean, he's an awesome villain. His costume in this, I had some problems with. It was like purple and green that gives me like Green Goblin vibes. And then like his mask, I dug the scars, like the scars coming down kind of make it look like he's crying, which I thought was a cool effect. Then like the shield, his mask or whatever comes down his helmet and it's like blue and it just looks off. It doesn't look right to me. Let's see here. Jonathan Majors said that Kang would be a different type of villain to the MCU than Eric Killmonger and Thanos were. Yeah, he's got like elements of Killmonger and Thanos, but I would say he definitely makes it his own. I think as I'm watching him, I'm like, okay, this is different. This is, we haven't seen this kind of performance from a villain before, at least in the MCU. I guess you could say Thanos and Killmonger, obviously, but the way that when you're first introduced to him, and even like throughout most of the film up until like the final act, I'd say he's leaning into and using humanity to manipulate and influence like the people he's trying to conquer, right? So it's like, speaking softly and having kind of a soft expression on his face, not this like overbearing, aggressive. He's kind of using relaxed body language. Like everything that he's putting into that character must come from being old AF. He's an old motherfucker that hundreds of thousands of years old, right? So he's seen it all, he's done it all. And so, yes, he probably is desensitized to a lot of what humanity is, but he still knows to use humanity as a tool and a weapon to get people to let their guard down and to agree to his terms. So I dug that, as opposed to a lot of the villains you see where it just feels very stock. Yeah, so if you didn't see Loki, the Time Variance Authority, they basically were in charge of any variant timelines that were kind of branching off due to whatever that's going on. They get clipped and snipped. Like, can't have that happen. We need to make sure that there's this one main timeline, I think, is where a select few timelines. We can't have millions and billions of timelines. Peyton Reed. Wait, hold on a second. Peyton Reed likened Kang to the Alexander the Great. Majors found inspiration in Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar. Majors added 10 pounds of muscle for the role, focusing on strength and conditioning. By the way, you didn't really get to see his body in full action, but there were trailers and previews for Creed 3. The dude is fucking, it looks like a superhero. I mean, he's got the superhero body. So yeah, I feel like we're about to see a whole lot of majors over the next, I would say 5 years, but maybe not. Maybe this is just a 2 or 3 year run, but what a run it's going to be. On par with Michael B. Jordan, you know what I'm saying? Kang has dominion over time, quote unquote, a warrior, strategist, all-time antagonist, force of nature. Yeah. Kathryn Newton plays Cassie Lang, who's Scott Lang's daughter, now 18, has acquired a suit and has come up with technology to communicate with the quantum realm, which of course goes awry. And so they get sucked in because she was messing around with the quantum realm. David Dastmalchian. So we brought up, what up? We brought up Dastmalchian because he was played John Deacon in Weird the Al Yankovic Story, and now he's plays Veb, a slime-like creature that does not have any holes and that lives in the quantum realm. Which when they first introduced him and it was that whole conversation, I was like, this is a funny one-liner. But then they brought it back and they tied it back, and there was a setup and a payoff. So good. He played Kurt in the first 2 Ant-Man films, so it's cool that they brought him back. And he's another guy that I remember being impressed with his performance as Polka Dot Man, I think, in the Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad, the first one, 2016, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and he was great in that role. But he was also great as like that random police officer that was in Joker's army in Dark Knight. So I felt like he's getting more airtime and screen time now, which is great. Katy O'Brien as Jentorra, a freedom fighter rebelling against Kang's oppression. I dug it. I thought it was solid. I'm trying to think of what more I needed from it. With more comedy, there was like 1 or 2 parts that it was like, that's funny for her character type thing. Total badass. So, I got that going for her. Not everyone has to be funny, dude. You know what I'm saying? William Jackson Harper is Quaz, not Quavo, R.I.P., I think. William Jackson Harper, he played Chidi in The Good Place, if you remember that. And then he was also, there's some other direct-to-streamer movie, I think it's on Peacock, about like the resort or something like that, where he plays the boyfriend of a couple trying to save the relationship or something like that. Newlyweds trying to save I don't know. They go to a resort and there's like a murder. And so they're trying to figure that out. Freaking murder, dude. He was great. I loved his performance as Quaz. The whole mind reading thing is comedy gold. Bill Murray. Spoiler alert, dude. Bill Murray's in this. If you didn't know that going into it, I apologize. But he's listed on the cast. He's not uncredited. Bill Murray plays Lord Krylar, the governor of the lavish Axia community in Quantum Realm, has a history with Janet Van Dyne, which I thought that was pretty funny. Reed believed Mary's character represented a person's past always finding a way to show up again, and the film's theme of secrets between family members and how they affected by them. Yeah, that is interesting, And she does say toward while they're escaping from that scene, because that's the scene where basically Bill Murray has sold her out and is like, we can't have you run around, like you need to meet him to see that they were fighting against Kang, and now Kang has found a way to bring Krylar over to the dark side, if you will. There were little Darth Vader-esque moments with Kang too, like with the hand gestures, and because I'm not too familiar with the comic books and Kang the Conqueror. I've heard the name tossed around. I remember seeing him in action. So I guess that's part of his character, but it had a very Darth Vader-ish feel to it. But yeah, I did find that funny that Janet Van Dyne's like, well, I was down there for 30 years. What do you? I have a woman that I have needs, and then Michael Douglas being like, yep, samesies. Her name was Linda or something like that, and I was like, or Lindsay or Linda. I think that maybe that's a reference to Wonder Woman. No, not Linda. It's Diana. Come on, idiot. Who is Linda? I bet that's someone, because the way they said it was like, that's got to be someone. Criminal associate and lover of Eric Killmonger. I don't think so, dude. I don't think that's who I'm thinking about. Oh, here it is. Ant-Man 3's Linda might be one of the Marvel Comics' first female characters. Okay. All right. Well, there's no other information about Linda beyond that one, possibly given the larger landscape of Marvel Comics, is that she might be Linda Carter, which, not to be confused with Wonder Woman actress Linda Carter. Linda Carter was created by Stan Lee and Al Hartley as Linda Carter, student nurse. 1961. First female-led title. All right. Medical student, registered nurse. And she adopted the moniker Night Nurse. Secret medical care for a number of heroes and became a love interest for Doctor Strange. Ah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Gotcha. But yeah, he's like, I had a thing with Linda. Michelle Pfeiffer is Janet Van Dyne, dude. What a perf. Someone was saying this is like a close second to her performance as Catwoman in Batman Returns, which it's hard to beat that performance. That was like peak Michelle Pfeiffer. But yeah, she does a bang up job as Janet Van Dyne, aka the original Wasp. But I mean, dude, 30 years? You're lost? Whoa. I mean, yeah, that's gonna warp you a little bit. In and out. And then I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, so I'm going to pass on that one. But Michael Douglas is Hank Pym, former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, entomologist, physicist, was the original Ant-Man. I think it was, I was like focusing on his hearing aid for a large chunk of the first half of the movie. I was like, I don't know why that's so distracting, and I know maybe he's hard of hearing and he's that's something that the character needs. But I just noticed, I was like, every time I was on screen, I was just like looking at it. And of course, there's a payoff, the setup and the payoff. It comes into play during the movie. There are some other cameos, right? You have the post-credit scene, if you know what I'm talking about. But here's one that was interesting that, I mean, again, this is me, just my lack of knowledge. So they have one of the, I think it was like maybe the opening scene or opening act. They have him, Scott Lang, Paul Rudd walking down the street in his upbeat music, and he's smiling, saying hi to everyone. And then he has this similar scene towards the end of the movie. And one of the men that asks Lang for a picture with his dog is played by Mark Oliver Everett, who's the frontman of the rock band Eels, which I think they have a song called Novocaine, which is pretty decent. I think it was in the movie Road Trip. Novocaine for my soul before I sputter up. Again, so far from what that song actually is. Anyway, his father was quantum physicist Hugh Everett III and the originator of the many worlds interpretation of quantum theory. I mean, holy shit, dude. That is next level Easter egg. I just dropped it on your ass. So the plot, I mean, I didn't really have any issues with the plot. I will say this. Wasn't it like the first Ant-Man where he's like learning how to use the suit and he's really going through some physical rigors, trying to adjust the suit and get used to the suit. And even like, they were like, you can't go in the quantum realm. You can't go in the quantum realm. It'll tear you apart. And I remember him when he goes in the quantum realm in that first movie, is definitely like he's about to be torn asunder. So then this movie comes along and it's like they get sucked in the quantum realm. A bunch of them don't have suits. And then the daughter ends up using her suit in the quantum realm and is like pretty much has it down pat. It's just like jump and tap was like the one thing that Scott Lang was trying to impart on her, was like, jump and tap. So that felt like, okay, maybe we should have, but they already spent a bulk of the first movie on it. So it's like, you don't want to spend too much time on that here. Again, the runtime was like a little over 2 hours. So it's like, I don't know that you want to pack too much more into it. I just felt like, and I guess they did do a good job of when Kathryn Newton's character, Cassie Lang, starts talking about the quantum realm and how she can communicate with the quantum realm. You do see that dread on Michelle Pfeiffer's face, Janet Van Dyne. And then she does like freak out and is whatever. But it's like we went from, and you don't get to see them really losing their minds like was originally warned in the first movie until they get to some other layer or level of an even more subatomic level or something like that in the quantum realm. So interesting. Again, I didn't read any of the comics, so take that with a grain of salt, homie. So yeah, Kang crashes. Janet Van Dyne, who's stuck in the quantum realm, helps him out, but then realizes when she touches the ship, because the ship has like a kinetic connection, say that 10 times fast, to Kang. And so she sees all the atrocities that he committed and all the genocide and the murder and whatnot. And she's like, oh, you're a bad dude. And then that's after they had a very heart-to-heart, open, vulnerable conversation. So yeah, Kang's been exiled by the other variants. Yeah. Steal Krylar's ship. Got it. Oh man. Yeah, it's true. So Jentorra revealed that Janet's involvement with Kang was indirectly responsible for his rise to power. And then the introduction. So this is I guess this is a spoiler because it's not in the trailer. Kang's forces are led by M.O.D.O.K. M.O.D.O.K stands for Modified Organic Designed for Killing or something like that. Modified Organic Designed Organism for Killing. Is that how it goes? Definitely not. Which, of course, Scott Lang pokes fun at. But when M.O.D.O.K first comes on the scene, there are a bunch of kids in the audience. Like there had to be like a 4-year-old next to me. And I was like, this kid, like, I know these seats recline, but you are fully reclined and the seat is not reclined. Does that make sense? That's how small you are and young you are. Like you reclining takes up just the butt portion of the seat. Like you don't even have to recline the rest of the seat. But there were some, youngins in the crowd, and every time M.O.D.O.K came on the screen, they laughed. And I was like, I think it's intentional the way they designed him to make you laugh. Yes, of course they did. But it was like the first one, I was like, kind of cringe because I was like, I don't know if that's the intended reaction. And then the more you get to see of him, the more he behaves and acts. You're like, all right, he is the comic relief. Got it. But it's revealed to be Darren Cross, who survived his apparent death at Scott's hands in the first one when Darren Cross was playing Yellow Jacket. He stayed in the quantum realm and was picked up by Kang. Kang modified his ass. Yeah, so definitely provided some laughs throughout there. So it's all about restoring this power core, right? Because the power core was initially destroyed by Janet Van Dyne when she threw PIM particles at it and kind of blew it up. And then now Kang's like, Scott Lang has to now go in and retrieve it and bring it back to him, or he's going to kill his daughter. I love that the ants come and rescue them, led, I guess, some quasi led by Michael Douglas, the original Ant-Man. I thought that was cool. Although I didn't quite understand how they managed to go to a part of the quantum realm that advanced 1,000 years. Like they lived 1,000 years in the quantum realm at the same time that like the Langs and the Pim Van Dynes or whatever are just like in the moment real time. I didn't quite get that, but apparently they were able to advance technology, intelligence to the point where they could assemble an army and formulate an attack on their own. And they were able to communicate with Mr. Hank Pym via his hearing aid. Yes, setup, payoff. Love it. I guess, yeah, Cassie Lang is able to convince M.O.D.O.K to flip sides, change sides. And fight against Kang, and he was pivotal in that final fight scene, helping to thwart Kang. I didn't really pick up on how I felt like they needed Kang's ship to get out, and instead it's like they just were able to create a portal. It seemed like that came together very quickly. I didn't think that was an option, but now it is, and there's a portal. Holy shit. I honest to God thought Ant-Man was gonna die. I thought Scott Lang was definitely gonna perish in this movie. I thought this was gonna be like, this is how they're kicking off. Like, what a kickoff to Fate. It almost like was a foregone conclusion. I heard so many people talking about like, okay, someone big is gonna die, and it's gonna be probably Ant-Man, and that'll be enough to kick off Phase 5 and to let people know that Kang's for real, and that Scott Lang is just one of many that are about to fall at the hands of Kang, and he didn't, and I'm kind of happy for it. That was the tone, at least, going to this movie. It wasn't going to have this kind of more I don't think they really dialed back the comedy that much. I get, it had a heavier feel, but that was the intent. Like, this is the kickoff of Phase 5, the intro of Kang into the feature film world. It needed to be heavier. So yeah, we'll get to the critics and the reviews in a little bit, but like, I was fine with it. I think, I mean, it is a tough look for Kang, that's for sure, where it's like, you're being hyped up as like the antagonist of all, the supervillain of all supervillains, and you can't be like Ant-Man and his family. So I could see how that's like a negative in his that's an L, a big L, but we haven't seen the last of him, and it's gonna get cranked up even more. I did enjoy, like, so they get back, Hope Van Dyne, the new Wasp, goes back because I think Scott Lang pushes Cassie Lang through the portal, right? Because he doesn't want her to miss out, and basically sacrificing himself in case the portal closes. He didn't want his daughter to be stuck on that side with him. Figured he'd sacrifice himself, and then Hope Van Dyne as Wasp flies in, gets Scott, and brings him out. That to me was, I guess, the part of the movie that didn't fully come through. Is they did have that, that opening narration where he's walking down the street, and then they show him narrating a bunch of scenes where it's basically talking about what Hope Van Dyne's been up to, and then you see them kind of get together and share a beer on a crane overlooking San Francisco, and it's like, it's kind of like the extent of what's going on there. This is more of a father-daughter movie, and then like you have Janet and Hank, and they have Scott and Cassie, but it feels like, a lot of times Hope Van Dyne was just kind of there, and we didn't really get to explore. It didn't feel like her relationship developed with anyone, really. I don't think. I guess her mother, she was pretty upset with her mom, because like her mom just held all those secrets from her for that entire time. Pretty pissed about that. I would be too. But I did like the opener, like happy, what's next type of thing, like being okay with it. Whereas his daughter's like, oh, so you're just going to be okay with it? That's like, this is your life from now on, and you need to want to help people. Like, that should be part of your future, is like helping people, helping communities. And that was a major theme of, most of the plot was like, we can't turn our backs on this community. We can't just try and escape and leave them here to die. Like, we need to help them out. And I was like, all right. So then the closing scene with Scott Lang walking and talking, narrating, mirrors the first scene, but then the tone, like the musical tone, becomes eerie, and you start to get the sense of dread. Because as Scott happily resumes his life, he begins to rethink what he was told about Kang's death being the start of something terrible happening, but eventually brushes off with, oh, it's fine. I dug that scene. But overall, I was like, I know that people, myself included, get very like pissed off when a movie includes way too much CGI. And this movie had a lot of CGI, but it wasn't distracting. It wasn't like, this is obviously CGI. I thought most of the CGI was pretty well done. And maybe that's because it was in 3D. I saw it in real 3D, and maybe that helps things. But I wasn't like, oh, this is such CGI bullshit. It didn't really impact my viewing habits in a negative way at all. So that wasn't an issue for me. Again, Michelle Pfeiffer, good performance. Jonathan Majors, great performance. Michael Douglas was more seemingly relaxed in this movie versus the first two. And, I thought Kathryn Newton did a pretty decent job. I don't think it was, she wasn't like stealing scenes or anything like that. Maybe, given the performances by Paul Rudd, which it feels like maybe he's done with that character. It feels like maybe he's over it, but he's just so nice and polite about it. I don't think he'll ever reveal that, but he has said in the past, like he doesn't go after roles that for the money, he goes after it because of the character and the people that he's working with in the script. So I think he's pretty content with what he's doing. There were two post-credit scenes. So the first one was we get to see all the Kang variants. There's like a Rama Tut, something like that, Egyptian type looking dude. There's like a cyborg looking guy, which I thought was an interesting choice that they would go with the cyborg looking guy. It's kind of like a needle in the side of DC Films universe. And then another Egyptian looking dude with a kind of a raspy voice that I guess is like one of the oldest. And that triumvirate kind of is the council that leads the thousands or hundreds of Kang variants. So it's basically them talking about how they're we're gonna take care of biz. And then the next post-credit scene was towards the end, and it was a variant of Kang whose name was Victor Timely, and it was in the 1900s and 1920s, something like that, talking about some revolutionary technological advancement. And then in the crowd is Loki and Mobius, Owen Wilson as Mobius. And Loki looks pretty dude. Very emotional. Like tears in his eyes, like, oh my God, what is going on? It's about to get nerds up in here. All right, so trivia time. This is the first Ant-Man movie not co-written by Paul Rudd, and you kind of got a sense of that. Like it was missing a little. It still had a healthy dose of Paul Rudd being Paul Rudd, which is always great. But it did feel like it was still missing his touch a little bit. So Peyton Reed, we went over his resume. Awesome resume. I think I failed to mention that he directed some behind the scenes material for the Back to the Future franchise, especially Back to the Future Part 2, which came out in 1989. And there's that family dinner scene in Quantumania where they have the small pizza and they puts a little drop on it and expands into a big pizza. And so that he says that was a tribute to the making of documentary that he did for Back to the Future Part 2, where it's like they're in the future. Michael J. Fox is in the future. The McFlys are all gathering around for pizza, and it's this little pizza, and then they put it in that what it looks like a microwave, and it's just like what do they call it? Rehydrator? Something like that. It expands into a full pizza. He said that was a tribute. That's a little tip of the hat to it, he revealed, which I thought was cool. Scriptwriter Jeff Loveness based the dynamic between the fathers and daughters in this film on the father-daughter films Father of the Bride and Hook. Hook was a father-daughter movie. I haven't watched that since I was 12 or 11. So maybe I need to rewatch that. But yeah, I got some Father of the Bride vibes. Definitely, for sure. Kang's facial scars resemble the markings on his mask from the comics. His face shield also makes his face appear blue. So I get it. I dug the scars. I did not dig the shield. And apparently there have been many attempts to incorporate M.O.D.O.K into live-action film or TV series before this film debut, but also he has a TV series on Hulu, and I don't know if that has any ties. I think Marvel at one point was just like, we've got it all, baby. Take a look at this library. And they were just like, hey, take a walk around, pick something out. You can't have any of this section, but you can have this. M.O.D.O.K, huh? M.O.D.O.K was in an early version of the script for Iron Man, where M.O.D.O.K was the main villain. Whoa. M.O.D.O.K was going to appear in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I just don't see it. And Peter Dinklage was odd to play him. Whoa, dude. Marvel rejected the idea in favor of Alexander Pierce, which, as unmemorable as Alexander Pierce is or will be, played by Robert Redford, who is not unmemorable. Very memorable. So Not a bad move there. And then they thought Dinklage was going to play M.O.D.O.K in Avengers Infinity War, but ended up playing Eitri instead, where he woke up the Dwarf Star, I think, for Thor's new, not hammer, the battle axe. What is it called? Stormbreaker. Yeah. And then he was going to be M.O.D.O.K was going to be in the 5th season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but nope. So M.O.D.O.K, long time coming. And I got to say, it looks like he died in this film, spoiler, but I don't know that we're going to see him a ton moving forward. It's kind of, it kind of makes sense to see why, unless he's going to be that kind of funny side villain here and there, like one scene and other, I don't know, installments. It just feels like, I don't know that you can carry the movie as a villain. It's a tall order. So I can understand why they've tried multiple times to incorporate him, but it hasn't worked out. It's like, ultimately, we can do better. Kevin Feige called the film a direct line into Phase 5 and will lead directly to Avengers Kang Dynasty. So what did critics say? Metacritic had a weighted average score of 48 out of 100. Oof, with mixed or average reviews. Cinema Score, average grade of B. Post-Track reported 75% of members gave it a positive score. With 60%, they would definitely recommend it. I would definitely recommend it. 47% of critics gave it a favorable review with average rating of 5.6 out of 10, while top critics gave it an average rating of 5.4 out of 10. And then 84% of the audience gave it a favorable review, with verified audience members giving it an average rating of 4.2 out of 5, and all audience giving it an average rating of 4.1 out of 5. All right. Well, I will not be as harsh as the critics here. I think I gave it a 7 on IMDb out of 10. And I would say, yeah, probably in the high 3s out of 5, 3.5 to 3.9 out of 5 on that 5 scale. The critics' consensus, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania mostly lacks the spark of fun that elevated earlier adventures, but Jonathan Majors' Kang is a thrilling villain poised to alter the course of the MCU. Yeah. I mean, not as fun. Okay, I could see that, but that's part of the issue with Kang. I mean, I don't know how much fun you can have with Kang, right? It's like Thanos. Like, did you have a lot of fun with Thanos? Right? Thanos was impending doom, and Kang wanted to have that same kind of resonance. And so I don't know. So maybe Ant-Man wasn't the best way to kick it off, or was it? Because it's like, this is just a little warm-up exercise, a little foreplay for when we're really going to unleash the full Kang in later installments. So, I would not be as harsh as the critics. And I think this is a case of I think a lot of the critics are probably just friggin' tired, of the MCU. I think a lot of people probably would say that it peaked with Endgame. It's like, how do you top that? It's a culmination of a decade's worth of movies, or more than a decade worth of movies in installments. And so just to get to that final culmination, to get that final spot, it's like, how the frig do you top it? And you can see it's not exactly, we're not there yet, but who knows? Like, if you put us out another, they really have to show kind of signs of something happening in the next couple of years here, right? Like, if Avengers Kang Dynasty comes out in 25 and it's like not on par with most of the it's got to be better than, as good as or better than the original Avengers, I would think. Because if it falls short of that, then I think they're in trouble. But yeah, I think this is a case of just like and this was mentioned in a lot of the reviews I read, was Phase 4 felt like a mess. There wasn't anything cohesive tying it together, really. Although they cited, like, WandaVision there was tie-ins to Doctor Strange, and then you would see Loki had tie-in with so it's like there were here and there, but it wasn't as cohesive as it was in the phases leading up to Endgame. So now this is like, I guess, them resetting, and Kang is that common thread. So it's like, all right, Kang's the dude, he's the threat, and now everything is going to be kind of driving towards that big battle, that climax. So look, I was going in expecting to be like, oh man, they really mailed this in, they phoned it in, and this is just boilerplate template type stuff. For the most part it was, but I love the world that they created. It had like a little Star Wars vibe to it, or that canteen scene, the cantina scene, like it had Star Wars vibes to it. And you know, I like that they had to drink the ooze to understand what they were saying. You know, the holes pay off. The guy had no holes, and then he gets like fucking shot up, and he's like, I have holes. Like he's so happy he has holes. Yeah, I mean, I laughed a couple times, but I guess I would say pleasantly surprised. Like I wasn't like, wow, my life changed. You know, it wasn't like that, but it definitely felt like, okay, I don't mind this being the kickoff for phase 5. If this was like, you know, if this was like if they had inserted any other villain than Kang, that's when you had to start to wonder, you'd be like, is this part of phase 4? Like, what are we doing here? But now we've you know, Doctor Strange touched on it. Doctor Strange and Spider-Man both touched on introduced the multiverse idea concept. And now we're going to fully run with it with Kang. And then Loki also extended that as well. So I'm excited. Like multiverse, dude. I love multiverses, man. So cool. So I think it's a good first kickoff for phase 5. I think there is a little bit of fatigue. And even Feige, I think Feige said it, like, we're just pumping out way too many movies and TV shows. And I think we need to space them out a little bit more. And that might be part of the fatigue. And I kind of agree with them. It's kind of like, yeah, like I know that there's a desire and a need for it, but at the same time, I think it might start to wear on people. So that's a good idea to kind of space it out a little bit more, give people a chance to breathe. So yeah, that's Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Where do you go from here? What's next on the list? I forget. But they got their villain. Kang's a pretty solid dude. I mean, not a great look to be kind of owned by Ant-Man. But yeah, I think good things could come of it. So that's the show. Thanks so much for watching and listening. You know, a nice, cool, crisp, brief 3-hour podcast. But we'll talk to you next week. Adios, muchachos.